Hello friends, welcome to Gardening with Creekside. Today we have a very fun, informative video for you. But before we get too far into it, I want you to grab a piece of paper, your gardening journal, something to write with, because we're going to have a lot of really good notes for you thinking about next year. Of course, here we are, middle of September in North Carolina, zone 7B. I'm not gonna lie, it's still pretty toasty here in North Carolina. Today we actually have some drier air, which is very welcome. We are going to be filming this in the early afternoon, so it's gonna be nice and bright and sunny, but that makes a point for us doing this video because we want to share with you our top performing annuals here in late summer. I know it's September, we're not officially in fall yet, soon, but here in the South especially, I mean, we have had a very hot, high humidity summer, and there have been some annuals that have not been able to hang in with us throughout. I'm already ripping some stuff out. However, there are some gorgeous plants that are just performing their heads off. So Jerry and I thought it would be really fun to share those with you so that when you're planning your garden for next year, taking notes in your gardening journal, you can make note of these types of plants and incorporate them into your garden. I know Jerry and I have already talked about several of these plants, and we're like, okay, next year we're not going to put plant A there, we're going to put this plant because at the end of the summer it is going to be gorgeous and beautiful. So we are out in the sun. Protect your eyes, people. I'm going to be wearing my sunglasses. So the first plant that we are going to talk about is this stunning Lantana. Lantana in the South is an absolute rock star performer. I think especially in the spring we overlook Lantana because it loves it hot. And in the spring it still is a little thin and a little sparse because we don't have those high temperatures. But if you can think ahead, think beyond that little grande pot where maybe it is small, or it's a gallon pot and it's a little small. This, my friends, is what you need to think of. This is the Luscious Citron. It is new this year. You saw us plant this garden and look how absolutely full and thick it is. You cannot see down into the mulch because it has grown so beautiful and thick. I have got honeybees in here. I have got butterflies in here. The hummingbirds love this. Huge there is a monarch. We have a monarch over here. So I don't know if Jerry can catch it without scaring him away, but there is a monarch back there. Monarchs, for some reason for us here at the nursery, come this time of year only. It's very late in the season. But Lantana can handle the heat and the humidity. This bed gets sun up to sundown, stunning. I have not pruned this. I have not, of course, deadheaded, forget that. Lantana is more deer resistant because it's coarse and kind of has that little bit of an herby smell to it. Massive color. So there's another section of Lantana just right behind Jerry. I want to show that one to you because it's a completely different color. So we're going to flip around and go visit that Lantana. Okay, so you might be able to see Citron just right over my left shoulder. This is the berry blend. It is a beautiful, I guess you would call it a bicolor of pink and yellow. And I chose to put this here because if you followed us, you know up close to the patio, I want to go with light colors. There are some pentas that are growing underneath there. I really underestimated this plant and how well it was going to grow. Massive, huge performance. In the spring, I was a little worried. I thought, oh no, it's not going to make it. But man, once the heat hit, it exploded. I even have shrubs back here that this Lantana is taking over. So the Lantana, not that this is like a crazy, size of it, I probably overplanted it. So next year I know not to put as many plants in here, but it is spilling over. It is beautiful. I am going to let it go until we get a freeze. But just again, I mean, I've got bumblebees, I've got honeybees. There was another monarch over here. Fantastic pollinator performer that absolutely thrives in the heat. Now, we're going to come over here because we're right close to another fantastic annual that you want to add into your garden. This is any of the rockin' salvias. This particular one is rockin' Playing the Blues, and it is gorgeous. I have actually come in here several times and had to kind of trim it up a little bit because it was coming a little bit too far into the guara or it was going too far into the roses. This is just another massive pollinator magnet. The foliage on this is beautiful. I mean, there's no bug damage on it. I don't have any funky colors to it. It is just gorgeous. And with salvias, the more you prune it or, clean it up, the more it blooms. And the pollinators everywhere on this plant. Playing the Blues is actually going to be a perennial for us here in Zone 7B. If you're questionable about your Rockin' Series Salvia, you can look it up on provenwinners.com, see what the growing zones are. But I really encourage you, especially if you're in the southern climate like we are, is once a freeze comes, don't rip it out of the ground, just cut it to the ground. I have had the salvias come back when technically they shouldn't. Playing the Blues is listed as a perennial according to the zones for us. So once a freeze comes, I'm just going to cut it back. But this has been performing its head off ever since I planted it back in the spring. Just stunning. So if you want the blue, Playing the Blues, Rockin' Fuchsia, nice hot pink, the Rockin' Deep Purple, gorgeous colors. Pollinators love them, hummingbirds love them, and they love the sun and they love the humidity. So yay! All right. We're going to move on to some fun grasses. Never underestimate the power of a grass in your yard. If you have been around me for any length of time, you probably know that I am a huge fan of grasses in the landscape, whether it is a perennial grass or an annual grass. Annual grasses, of course, are fantastic, like this purple fountain grass, because they are such fast growers. Here we have, there's 3 clumps of purple fountain grass in this bed, and of course, tons and tons of sun, and this bed is on irrigation, so they have received some consistent water throughout the growing season. That is the thing typically with the annual grasses, is if you can give them more water, the faster they grow. That's not always true with perennial grasses, but annual grasses, that seems to kind of be the case. More water, bigger growth. This started out as a gallon-sized container when we planted it. It is huge. I am 5'2", 3 on a good day, and this is almost as tall as I am. So this is every bit of 4 feet tall, if not a little higher. But easy, low maintenance, high performing, beautiful structure. If we had some wind, it would be blowing for us. So this is just the purple fountain grass. Now, if you're looking for a huge statement, one of my favorite grasses is vertigo grass. Now, vertigo is an annual, unfortunately, because some people want it to be a perennial, but it is going to be an annual. It is a giant purple fountain grass. It is one of the largest purple fountain grasses, if not the largest purple fountain grass out there. This is just massive. I don't know if we've even fertilized it. I don't think we've done any kind of water-soluble fertilizer on it. With vertigos, definitely. The more water you give it, the faster and the bigger they get. And to make my point, if you followed us, you know that we've had some irrigation woes in this bed. This side of the flower bed tends to get more water than when we move down here. So this is my largest purple vertigo rather. And then as we move down, like you can see that they slowly get a little bit smaller, and it's not necessarily because of the sun. I really think it's because of the water. But even as a small vertigo, this plant is quite impressive. So the deer don't like them. They love the sun, humidity, just great. So make sure you add some annual grasses to your landscape, because this time of year, such beautiful structure and interest and movement to your garden. Now, we've got a couple more fun things to show you, so let's move on down and we'll show you those. Another one of my all-time favorite plants, it's actually a series of plants, is this Euphorbia. This is diamond snow euphorbia. It is an annual, like all the other plants we're talking about today. That means early spring, we can get it in the ground. As soon as a freeze and frost comes, it will die back. Diamond snow has this really nice tight habit that gives you a really kind of a solid block of white. There is in that series, there is Diamond Mountain, which we have done before and is beautiful, but it can get nice and tall, right? Here, when I have it in front of my David Austin roses and this beautiful blue chiffon Rose of Sharon tree, I wanted something that would fill in and be nice and tight. That's why I went with the Diamond Snow, because it has that big solid pop of white color. Diamond Mountain would be too tall, and then Diamond Frost I could have used, but it's a lot more of a light and airy look. Here I wanted tight white. Gorgeous. Now this does, you can, water soluble fertilize this one. It will do really well with that. But once you get these established, they're very drought tolerant. This is actually not on irrigation. This section of the bed is not. So anything that it has gotten has been either rain or I have watered it, and it is doing really nice. Just really, really beautiful. There's a couple more plants here that I'm really excited to share with you. Now, it is midday and we are in the hottest spot of the yard. This is what I really want to share with you. My main focus, I know everything looks good, but my main focus here to share with you are these gorgeous Sun Patience. This is the Sun Patience Compact White, and I have used these now for, is this my first year maybe here? It is my first year here. Last year I used it more kind of in the shade garden, and they did so well, I decided to bring them here. Even though, like I said, it is hot right now, they are maybe showing a little signs of heat wilt. I probably need to water them. Jerry says no, they look good. Nice and thick and full, gorgeous, and big huge pops down through here. Now, a little free tip I want to share with you is that I am already making notes in my gardening journal of what I want to do different next year. So next year I am still going to use my Sun Patience here, these exact same plants, but because my camellias and my sprinter boxwoods have really started to grow, I'm going to take that Sun Patient and I'm going to push it back a little bit. So I'm going to have it, instead of everybody in a row, I'm going to have these guys push back, give more depth to my bed, and by next year especially, my camellias and my boxwoods will start to come closer together, so it won't look so crowded. I'm going to move them back a little bit. Things that we always take note of. What has been a huge, great success this year has been this Senorita Blanca Cleome. Cleome is just one of those old-timey plants that your grandmother would plant, but this Cleome is different because, one, it does not have thorns, so you don't have to worry about poking yourself, and it is sterile. So it is not going to have, I am not going to have thousands of little baby Cleomes in my garden next year. This is 3 plants here and 3 plants there. Huge, massive, big height. They have filled in much more than I ever thought they would. This area right here, I dare say, is literally the hottest spot in our entire garden because it gets hot, hot sun. This corner just bakes. And then when you add in the retaining wall and the pavers, it is radiant heat that just comes up. And look at them. Nice, deep, dark green foliage, beautiful white flowers up top, thick, just growing, very happy. So Cleome, don't ever underestimate the power of Cleome. They are fantastic plants that just keep going and going and going until the freeze hits. Now, we've got a couple more things that we want to share with you. All right, now, do you remember like 2 seconds ago, we were talking about the compact white Sun Patience? Full sun, hottest part of the garden? Yeah, well, look, here we go. The exact same plant. This is the Sun Patience Compact White in a much shadier location. Now, this does get a couple of hours of really good morning sun, but from this point on, it is shade all day long. You will notice these are not quite as thick and as full as the ones that are in the full sun. I did plant them just a little bit later in the season, maybe by a couple of weeks, but still, I mean, for not getting as much sun as the other guys, I am very, very happy with them. If you've been around me for any length of time, when I've talked about a shade garden, this beautiful plant right here, as long as I don't fall over, is one of my, if not my top favorite shade annual. This is the Endless Illumination Broalia. This thing is gorgeous. Every single year I will have this in my garden. This was one grande pot. One. And look how huge and massive it is. It just performs and keeps on producing these beautiful true blue flowers, a nice, really rich blue flower. And when you kind of plant them in mass throughout here, they just make a huge pop of color against those white sun patients. Really happy. They've been water soluble fertilized maybe just a handful of times. Of course, I put the slow release in there with them. But those are doing just gorgeous through here. Very happy. And caladiums. I mean, you can't go wrong with caladiums. They thrive in the heat and the humidity. This is just one of the many clumps that we have. So they are doing well, as is Torrenia. Torrenia is a wonderful annual that, depending on the variety, can do sun or shade. I have it here obviously in the landscape, and it is acting more like a ground cover. If you put it in a container, it will spill over and be like your spiller. But just a huge, I went with the white one this year. I've done the blue, I've done the pink before, but just nice, big, huge, fat blossoms on it. And so the pollinators can get down in there, especially your bumblebees, because they can really get down in there, get all that sweet nectar out of those flowers. But again, this was a grande container. One grande container, and it has turned into this. The foliage is beautiful. Nothing's chewing on it. It is blooming its little head off here in the middle of September. Once the freeze comes, it will take it out, and then I'll just pull it up, do my final, bed prep for the fall. But boom, I mean, look at this. So incredibly beautiful. There is a brand new Lantana that I am excited to share with you. I know we've already talked about Lantana before, but this is going to be brand new to the market for next year. So I'm going to show it to you because it is gorgeous, and we are going to put it in mass here at the house next year. All right, so here we are standing at the flower bed, really in right when you come into the flower, the entrance to the house. You will see, here we are, September, right? The daylilies are looking sad, right? It is September. In fact, we're thinking about mowing them down. So they're looking a little rough. We are in the preparations of getting ready to aerate and reseed the lawn. So just yesterday, he scalped that grass to get it as short as he could so that when we reseed and aerate and do all the other things, that it will be good to go. But what is looking stunning right now, gorgeous. I love this plant. This is new for 2023. It will be available. This is the new Luscious Lantana Lemon Zest. Where we had Citron that was a very soft, buttery yellow, this is like lemon yellow. Really a bolder color to it, but the habit on this Lantana is fantastic. Do you see how tight it is? Really, you could even almost imagine what that one plant looked like. These were grande containers, y'all. These were not even gallons. And this is one plant at the end of the season. Is this not gorgeous? I love this lemon zest. So my mama was the one that actually planted it for me in late spring. We do have a hibiscus in the middle of them. It is a red hibiscus. So when it was blooming, it was stunning. We had these big, huge red blooms, followed and surrounded by this lemon zest Lantana. At that point, it was a little bit shorter. Now it's okay that the hibiscus is done for the season because the Lantana is really showing. This is not on irrigation. I think we watered it when we planted it, and that is it, y'all. So to say that Lantana is drought tolerant and loves the sun, thrives in the heat and humidity of the late summer, this is example A, and this is all you need to know. So Lantana is just, I just cannot talk about enough how fantastic this plant is. So really, depending on the color that you want, there is a plant for you. And the Luscious series is really interesting because I know for some of you, depending on where you live in the country, Lantana can be considered like an invasive species because especially the old-timey varieties, they would reseed and they would go everywhere. The Luscious series has little to zero seed set. So even if Lantana has been an issue with you in the past, You're not going to have that problem with the Luscious series. So this is what we were looking at, and Jerry and I were like, you know, next year we just want like a hedge going down the side of the driveway, all the way down, huge pops of color. You can see where the mower ran out of gas yesterday, and then the little red lines because we're going to be redoing the irrigation. We've talked about this before, how this bed right beside of me, the irrigation is wonky and not right. So we had, we called 811 so they could come out and mark, because, you know, you really don't want to hit your main power line with a ditch witch, right? That normally doesn't go well. So that's what the red flags are for, so we know exactly where the power line is. It is anywhere from 4 to 6 feet deep in the ground, so we really are okay. But just to give you an update, because I know you're gonna be like, what is going on there? So I hope you have found some really fun plants to add to your gardening journal. I know I am like candidate number one. When it comes to spring, like, I want instant color. Give me all the color that looks amazing right now, right? So for us, that's like mid-April to mid-May. Give me all the petunias, give me all the super bells. And those are amazing and they are wonderful. But I want you to think not only about early spring and early summer, I want you to think about this time of year. And so with your bubblegums, your jazzberries, your snowdrifts, your dreamsicles, right? Get those, but then also go ahead and grab a tray of a lantana. Yes, it's going to be a little bit smaller because it's not thriving in the cool temperatures. It thrives in the heat and the humidity. So go ahead and grab a tray of those plants that we have talked about today. Add them to your garden at that same time, because this time of year, you're going to be so glad you did, because they are going to be out there giving you gorgeous, massive color. I think every single one of those just about supports your pollinators in your garden. It is going to be so nice and so welcoming to have them in your garden. So, as always, we hope it has been fun, informative. You have learned something. You have taken a little piece of a nugget of wisdom and added it to your garden and make it work in your space. As always, we so appreciate you. Thank you for all your love and support. Y'all have a great day, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye, friends.